morning. Welcome to the 1998 ProRodeo Hall of Fame induction ceremony. We're delighted that you're all here with us on this gorgeous morning, and the 10 o'clock train is almost by, so we're going to start. We start our induction program just as we start our rodeos. First, we'll post the colors. These are the Pikes Peak Range Rider pivots, and we appreciate them being here with us today. They will be leaving about 11 to prepare for this afternoon's rodeo performance. At this time, I would like to invite Lila Moray to the microphone for our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight for the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you. Next, we will have the invocation by the president of the Fellowship of Christian Cowboys, Mr. Grant Atkinson.
Thank you, Pat. Let's bow together in prayer. Father, we thank you for the beautiful morning you blessed us with. We thank you for ProRodeo. We thank you for rodeo. Thank you for this country and the freedom we have at rodeos across this land to bow our hearts and our heads before you, and thank you for being our Creator and being our Lord and Savior. So, Father, we thank you for that today. Thank you for this program, these inductees. We thank you for those in our rodeo sport that take such a strong stand for you. As we look at these beautiful mountains, enjoy your creation, we praise you that you're our Creator. And thank you most of all for the gift of Jesus Christ and his salvation that he makes available to each of us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Grant. We begin this morning's program with a recognition of a special rodeo. This is something we've done for about 12 years. And this year we are recognizing the Grand National Rodeo Horse and Stock Show, better known as the Cow Palace. And to make that introduction is Mr. Bob Theddy, who is a member of the PRCA Board of Directors as a committee rep.
I think we're going to be blessed with those trains all morning, so I think we'll just do it. It's a real honor to have been asked to present the Grand National Rodeo for induction into the PRCA Hall of Fame. I personally have a soft spot in my heart for the Cow Palace. I grew up in Walnut Creek, a suburb of San Francisco, and my parents made sure that our fall activities included the Grand National. My sister and I rode in the junior stock horse event as kids, and my mother has attended over 40 years without missing one. The Grand National Rodeo Horse and Stock Show is the official name, but to most people in the rodeo world, the event is simply known as the Cow Palace. Every contestant enshrined in the PRCA Hall of Fame competed at the Grand National on their way to becoming a world champion. It was and continues to be the last stop of the year for these athletes to match their abilities against the finest livestock the sport has to offer, just to make the top team that will compete at the National Finals Rodeo in December. The PRCA Rodeo year officially closes on the last day of the Grand National Rodeo. I believe it only fitting that the Grand National is now being enshrined in the Hall of Fame along with all the great world champion cowboys. The Grand National Rodeo at the Cow Palace can best be described as a tradition. And hopefully that tradition will continue for another 57 years. The first Grand National was held in November of 1941, and the gate price was 50 cents. You can believe that in this day and age. 1998 will mark the 57th year this great rodeo has been presented at the Cow Palace. With us today representing the Grand National Rodeo is Mr. Jack Cook, Chairman of the Board of Directors for the past 22 years. Mr. Darrell Chapman, General Manager for 27 years. And Mr. Cotton Rosser of the Flying U Rodeo Company has been the stock contractor at the Grand National for 31 years. Losing my place here. Accepting the plaque on behalf of the Grand National Rodeo is Mr. Jack Cook. Maybe Jack, you come up and something here for you.
Thank you, Bob.
We're going to read this plaque first, and then we're going to let you get on here. Okay. Take a minute here. I'm going to read this plaque. The idea for what would become the Grand National Rodeo Horse and Stock Show was born at the 1950 Pan-Pacific International Exposition. Local business leaders resolved to sponsor an annual livestock show to serve 11 western states. The first San Francisco Livestock Show took place in 1921 in tents. In 1941, the first Grand National Livestock Show opened in its present home. World War II suspended the show with the buildings and grounds used as staging areas for the troops. Since 1946, the Grand National Rodeo Horse and Stock Show has been an annual event offering top quality livestock exhibitions and rodeo entertainment. As one of the last rodeos counted toward the season, the Cow Palace has sometimes determined who will compete at the NFR and making it the must-stop for those cowboys on the bubble. The ProRodeo Hall of Fame recognizes the Grand National Rodeo Horse and Stock Show, San Francisco, California, for their pioneering effort, continuing support, and the perpetration of the sport of the professional rodeo. Presented August 8, 1998. Jack, congratulations.
Thank you, Bob. On behalf of the Board of Directors of the Cow Palace, I want to say how appreciative we are of being recognized this way as being one of the important venues of professional rodeo. We hope that this will go on for many, many years. I have sort of a personal kinship to the Cow Palace. My wife is a granddaughter of William Randolph Hearst, but he had a reporter many years ago that came to San Francisco by the name of Bob Considine. And as he looked around San Francisco, he said, they have most everything out here, including a palace for cows. That led to the name Cow Palace, and as Bob mentioned, I think we're known more as the Cow Palace than we are of anything else. At any rate, we're proud to be an important venue for the all-American sport of rodeo that attracts many all-American athletes to San Francisco every fall. So I thank you again for this honor and tribute to the Cow Palace. Thank you.
Thank you. And I did neglect to thank the band, Steve Rumplis and his rodeo band. We appreciate you here today. There are a couple of things that are a little different about today from those you may have been to in the past. One is the row of bronzes that you see here on this bench. In 1997, the Board of Directors made the decision to make a presentation of a miniature bronze of Casey and the Champ to all inductees. At that time, the decision was also made that it was unfair not to be retroactive with this, so every inductee from 1979 to today will have one of these bronzes. But this does mark the first time that the inductee will actually leave with a bronze today. The second thing you will notice that's different today is the new commissioner of the PRCA, who happens to be the chairman of my board, and that's Mr. Steve Hatchell, and we're delighted to have him as the newest member of our rodeo family. Mr. Hatchell.
Thank you, Patricia. It's nice to see all of you. What a great day. If you notice, this place is not only completely sold out, but I think you need to give yourselves a round of applause. Just look at this. What a great day, great crowd. You honor all of these wonderful inductees by your attendance here today, so it's just great to have you here. Pat Hildebrand does a lot of things. She can also stop the trains in between presentations, so I've learned who's the strength in this organization. Just a quick thought. I want you to know how honored and pleased I am to have the opportunity to be the commissioner of this organization. It's absolutely wonderful, filled with wonderful people, and it's just very, very special. And I look forward to not only working, but being with all of you as we set an agenda for the future, share a vision to make rodeo grow and be the best that it can possibly be. I want you to know, because of the temperature and all that there's water in the back of the right hand, to my right and to your left. And so whenever you want to, get up and get some water. And I don't think you'll offend anybody. Would like to just acknowledge that we've got some of our Hall of Fame members here, and if any and all of the Hall of Fame members who could find the time to be here today, if you'd stand so we could acknowledge you. That's great. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you. Would like to also acknowledge the hard work of the ProRodeo Hall of Fame Board, and just let you know how much we appreciate all that you do. And also our good friends, our corporate partners. There's many of you here today, and we want you to know how important you are to all of rodeo, and it means a great deal to all of us that you would take the time to be here today. Our friends from Las Vegas Events, thank you for being here, the site of the NFR, which is so very, very special. Would like to also acknowledge my predecessor, a person who, without a doubt, and now that I've been on the job all of a week, I think I've learned some of the complexities, and I've learned what I don't know. But this structure, this wonderful staff that makes rodeo work, the definition that is rodeo, and so many great things that he has done and is be able to put his imprimatur on is so valuable. And I would like to just ask all of you to please acknowledge Lou Cryer, who's standing over to your left. Lou, thank you for a job well done. Would like to acknowledge also Miss Rodeo America, Mary Shaw, and all of the other queens that are here today. Thank you. You've cleaned this group up a lot, all of you, so it's great to have you here. Thank you. We've got a wonderful day, and we're delighted that you're here to share in this heritage that is ProRodeo. As we spoke last night when we had the chance just to be with our Hall of Fame inductees, it's a special moment. What we're doing is we're adding bricks to this Hall of Fame. We're adding 6 new bricks today. And as we noted last night, it's to capture the wonderful history that is the way of life that's rodeo. Making it as strong as we can, acknowledging the great things that have happened. But most importantly, because of the works of all of these great people, they have provided the platform by which rodeo will move ahead into the future and always be one of the great institutions in America. Before we begin our induction ceremony today, if you join with me in a moment of silence in recognition of the Hall of Famers who passed away since our service last year. Those are Homer Pettigrew, Jim Bob Altizer, and Monty Montana. Thank you very much. To be selected as an inductee into the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame is an honor afforded to very few. Today's inductees will join 129 men and women and 19 animals from the thousands who have made their livelihood from rodeo and are represented in our Hall of Fame. We're going to change our order from the printed schedule that you have in front of you today because Oatberry has a presenter who needs to get back on the road. And at this time, I would like to ask Hall of Famer Clem McSpadden, who has to make it to a evening performance, to come up and his presentation to Oatberry. Clem?
Commissioner, I want to say condolences and congratulations for being in the big I just told the commissioner I didn't know whether to congratulate him or offer him condolences. Being the main man over about 7,000 or 8,000 of us gristleheads will not be a very good job, but I think he can do it. And coming from the Big 12 country, that kind of means something to all of us. First of all, I'd like to thank the Hall for something Pat mentioned a moment ago. I was fortunate enough to receive my replica, I guess 3 or 4 months ago or so, and I'm not a very good letter writer, and I want to publicly thank in behalf of those of us who forgot to write, what a great, great gesture that was for you all, how much we enjoy it. I jotted some notes down. Pat tells me that we have 5 minutes, and it generally takes me 5 minutes to clear off a spot to get ready, but I do have to catch an 11:20 flight. I'm still announcing a few rodeos because my wife still likes to go to Walmart, and I've got 11:20 flight to catch back, and she is the world's champion shopper. How in the world can I say in 5 minutes the things that need saying about Oatberry? He's a father, he's a champion, and he's a man, he's a leader. He was born, as you know, in South Dakota, and already I pulled out the wrong notes because I did them this morning on the flight coming down from Colorado Springs. Here they are, 2 legals, big deal here. And the first thing I want to impress on you, we have a lot of great cowboy athletes today, and I'm from the old school. We don't have a lot of cowboys. I mean pure cowboys that can gather a pasture, that can calve a bunch of heifers, that can dig a post hole, that can haul hay, knows what a drought can do to you, know when you have a good season. Oatberry is such a man. He was raised that way. His brothers and his sisters and his mother and father all gave of themselves to him, and especially a mother has so much to do with raising a young son under ranch and range conditions. And her leadership and her love and devotion, I think, has given this man a lot of the character that he has today. I'd like to talk to you briefly about 3 phases of his life. He's a champion, he is a father, and he is a whale of a man. I want you all to put this down and remember it. Here's one of the greatest stats about a man that's ever been inducted into this hall. He is the first cowboy in the history of all of inductions who won his first buckle at the age of 7 years old in the junior rodeo. Not in the pole bending or not in the calf roping, but in the barrel race. And let history know that he is the first bulldogger or first-time event man that ever won his first buckle in a barrel race. And another buckle had a lot to do about his career. In 1983, he had joined the PRCA a year or two before, and he wasn't doing very good. And he decided, and I've checked this out, I'd heard the legend, I got it from his dad, and I got it from him, and I got it from his mother, that he decided if he didn't do any good at Cheyenne, he's going back to the hayfield, because that's a busy time for him up in that part of the country. See, he was born in South Dakota, moved to Nebraska before he came to Dakota. Well, all he did was win the steer wrestling at Cheyenne. And any cowboy will tell you that that's one of the most coveted buckles that a person can win. And I found we have one thing in common. When I was about 8 years old, my grandmother drove me and some cousins over to Eureka Springs, Arkansas. We went up through Noel, Missouri, and then came back into Oklahoma in about 4 hours. And I thought that was the darndest thing in the world to be in 3 states, Jim Shoulders, in 3 or 4 hours. And I'm told that when Oat was 11, his sisters needed a horse at a college rodeo in Montana. So they were in South Dakota, Nebraska, and Montana, and that's all that Oatberry could talk about for a long, long time. A champion, he is one of 3 men ever to win 4 world's titles in steer wrestling, and he ain't through yet. He has done something at the national finals that no other man has ever done. The greatest attribute that a champion can have is his ability, or her ability, to act under pressure. And he has won 7 final go-rounds out of 11, and his brother won another. That's 8 out of 11 that the Berries have done. 3 of those times he had to win the last go-round to win the World's Championship. Now you talk about pressure, you talk about blue chip stacked high. When a man can do that, he becomes a champion, and he won the championship on 4 different horses. His first title was won on Roy Duval's Cadillac in '85. Then he went on Bobby in '90. Then he went on a John Burdine horse in '91. And then I think the most pleasing was his own horse that he won the title on '95. And that '95 title, I think, was very important to him from a personal point of view, because he had been out most of 1994 with back surgery. And not only did he come back, but he came back like a Hollywood script. He won the world. Now let's talk about, you know what he is as a father. And he says the way to win is, if you win, go get your check and be quiet about it. If you lose, very quietly go over and shake the hand of the man who won the event. That epitomizes goodness. But the thing that I think changed his life was in 1998. A little gal by the name of Jamie Smith, whose parents I've known. Well, I've known them before there was a gleam in Jim's eye and Jamie ever came along. And she had been to Rapid City and her pickup caught on fire, and she came back home, and Bill Duval, as is his custom, with a whole bunch of kids in his rig, pulled by their place at Castle, Oklahoma to see how Jamie was. And the young fellow sitting on the outside was a guy by the name of Oatberry. And they looked at each other and something kind of popped or snapped, or you know the feeling. They had the first date just weeks later at Tucson and were married later on that year. And then the greatest thing that can happen to a champion or a man is to have a family and have children. That transcends any title you can win. And those twins are sitting down there right now. Let me tell you about what Oatberry does at home. He reads to them every night. He reads children's books, he'll read children's Bible stories, and then he and Jamie will go kneel with them to say, "Now I lay me down to sleep." He is a father. And in today's world, when we see so much juvenile problems, you won't see it coming from families like Oat and Jamie are raising their kids, and like both of them were raised. And these little guys are 3.5 years old, and it's kind of funny the way they knew the alphabet when they were long twos, just to come in 3. He'd put little ABCDs down on the refrigerator, and then he'd be in the living room and he'd send them in to get a B or get a Q or get an R. And they got the little girl's a little faster than the little boy, and she'd go to beating him, so we had to get 2 sets. And now, one can go this way, and one can go that way. And there isn't anything greater than being a father and a parent. Now let's talk about Oatberry the man. For about 12 straight years, Ed Gaylord and A.G. Myers and his staff got to talking with late Ben Johnson and decided they want to do something for the children's medical research and the little kids who are not as fortunate in life as our children. And they started the pro celebrity team roping and team penning and team cutting in Oklahoma City. And every year Oatberry gives 2 days of his time and comes in and participates. And he goes to the hospital and he'll hold one of these little kids, bald from chemotherapy, that won't have 6 months to live. And those that can come to the arena, he'll lift them up on his horse, and he'll take them for a ride. They're inspiring to him, and he, as a champion and a man, is certainly inspiring to them. And there never was a cowboy who sat in a saddle any taller, any straighter than one that stoops down to pick up one of those unfortunate young people. They've endowed a chair for the late Ben Johnson for more than $4 million. And Ben Johnson left us, and Reba McEntire picked up the slack, and Oatberry is still there every year. And another $1 million has been raised for children's medical research. That's what he does with his time, and he misses the rodeo that week. And then 2 years ago, being an Oklahoman, it's still very vivid in my mind, that tragedy that happened, the bombing that happened about 05 on a Wednesday morning. This is something that could happen in far-off countries, a terroristic act like this, but maybe in Chicago or one of the coasts, but not in the heartland, not in Oklahoma City. And the 89er Days Rodeo is going on at that time. It had the slack the next morning. Oatberry threw a steer pretty fast and very quietly, without any fanfare, went to the secretary and said, if I place and I think I'm going to, send this check to those people. And he won better than $1,000. He might have been the first person that made an individual contribution to this Holocaust that we had in Oklahoma City. That's the kind of a man he is. And I think the only reason I'm here, they drew straws to see who would talk, and he lost. But I'm honored almost as much as I was the day I was fortunate enough to be, as my wife says, seducted into this place over here. When Oat asked me at the Reba McEntire fundraiser the night before it started if I would say a few things about him. My friends, I could talk for 10 or 15 minutes. He's a champion, he's a man, he's a father. I went to a little school with 11, my graduating class, and 53 in high school, and they had teachers that taught literature then. I don't know whether they do now or not. And we had a teacher that just about 4 or 5 years older than us, 17, 18-year-old kids in high school, and she taught us Shakespeare, and she taught us how to enjoy it. And there was one passage that fits this man, and I'm going to put one word in the present tense. When I say this, in the original passage, it was L-I-V-E-D, lived, in the past tense. And here's my judgment of Oatberry. He lives a kind and gentle life, and the elements in him are so mixed that nature can say to the world, this is a man. The old hall will have a niche filled that needs filling in a few minutes when this is official. I congratulate you, Oat, the Berry family, the Smith family, and thank you all so much for being our family's friends through the years.
Would like to, before you hear from Oat, just read what's inscribed on his plaque. It's been written in big letters for us because we can't read what's on the plaque. Scott Berry acquired his nickname as a toddler when his sister decided he walked like a television comic character named Otis. This quickly was shortened to Oat, and it stuck. Berry's been involved with rodeo since his childhood. He tried riding bareback broncs, but a couple of injuries convinced him at age 13 that steer wrestling was his event. He gave high school basketball a try, winning several awards, but rodeo won out. In 1980, he won the National High School Rodeo Association championed steer wrestling, the first of a long string of championships. In 1982, Barry joined the association, deciding he wanted to make enough rodeo to stay out of the hayfields forever. Most would agree his career has kept him out of the fields. Barry won his first world championship the year he qualified for the NFR, 1985. He began that year in second place in the standings, held that position throughout the year and into the finals. His second title was a bit more difficult. He went to the NFR well ahead of the pack, had problems over the 10 days, won the 10th go, and finished $147 in the lead for another gold buckle. Barry's 1991 championship wasn't assured until the final round of the NFR. When he won the 1995 championship, he became only the third cowboy in professional rodeo history to claim 4 or more titles in his event. You got to say this for the train, it's right on time, 10:30. Barry has been called the quiet champion. His creed, if you win, then walk over and pick up your money. If you lose, then walk over and congratulate the man who won. World champion steer wrestler, 1985, 1990, 1991, 1995. Oath, the board of directors of the ProRodeo Hall of Fame is proud to have you as a member of the Hall of Fame. Thank you.
Well, a couple of weeks ago, I'd made plans to give my retirement speech here and announce my retirement, but I was only 5 numbers short on the Powerball, so I guess I'm gonna have to keep rodeoing for a little bit. And I don't know if anybody's got last night's numbers or not, but I got a ticket right here. It's hard to sum up a career in 5 or 10 minutes, but I know when I started rodeoing, like I said, my goal was to make enough money to stay off the ranch and stay out of the hay fields. For the first couple of years, that was enough, but after I got close to making the finals a couple times, well, my goals got a little higher, and I wanted to make the NFR, and I wanted to be a world champion. I've got a lot of people to thank for that. Starting back when I was young, I went to Fred Larson's Bulldogging School when I was a junior in high school. And Fred taught me a lot of things and told me a lot of the same things that my father told me, but it was easier to listen to Fred. And when he'd come up and grab you behind the neck, it was real easy to listen to Fred. Got to thank a lot of the people that helped me along, helped me with horses. Tommy Combs mounted me on his horse at Cheyenne in 1983. And like I said, I hadn't entered no rodeos for the next couple of weeks. I planned on going home. I was broke, and I went right at $11,000 at Cheyenne, and that, I think, was probably the biggest turning point in my career. It gave me the confidence, it gave me a little money to keep going. It gave me the confidence that I knew if I could win money at Cheyenne, where all the toughs was entered, well, I knew I belonged there with them. In the next couple of years, I made friends with the Duvals, and I got on a great horse called Cadillac in 1985, and at the time, I think he was probably the best horse going. And when I got to winning money, it just built my confidence, and I got more confidence in my horse and in myself. And I really need to thank the Duvals for kind of taking me in, and Bill and Imogene and Roy and Karen. And Imogene was like a mother to me when I was young, and they let me live at their house. And I just need to thank them people. But some of the people I need to thank are probably. I don't know how to say it. I guess when I was in high school, I grew real fast. I was real tall, real skinny, pretty clumsy. And when I'd back in there to Bulldog, I could see the fences just line up with people to come watch the wreck, you know. And I think them was the people that inspired me most, because I knew in the back of my mind that someday they'd be climbing the fence to watch me, because I was good, not because I was fixing to take a wreck. And I knew then in the back of my mind that I knew I wanted to be a cowboy since I was 4 years old. That's all I ever dreamed of. And I got a lot of people that helped me get here. My family, of course, my dad and my brothers, and my mom and sisters. they all believed in me when them other folks was laughing at me. And just takes a great family, a lot of love and support to get to where you are, and I've been fortunate to have one of the best. Also takes good health, and I've had a couple misfortunes. I sure want to thank the Justin Sports Medicine Program, Dr. J. Pat Evans, and Dr. Tandy Freeman, two of the greatest guys in the rodeo business. They've helped a lot of cowboys. They've helped a lot of people out. I need to thank Wrangler. I know in 1994 when I had my back surgery, times was real tough. If it wasn't for my endorsements from Wrangler, I'd have had a tough time taking off in 95 to rodeo. And I appreciate their financial support, as long as, they make a great line of clothing, but I also, their financial support for me and my family has been great. I also need to thank Colt Firearms. They've been my sponsor for the last 2 years, and the same thing in 1996 when I had elbow surgery and sat out a lot of the year, that my sponsors stuck with me, and they didn't cut me and try to go get somebody else that was out there winning and making a name. They stayed with me through the bad years, and I'm going to try to help them every way I can. But they've sure been a big help in my career. And I want to thank my wife Jamie and her family. Her folks been a lot of help. I'm gone a lot rodeoing, and they help out with the kids, and Jim helps out with taking care of some of my cattle and some of my business at home. And if it wasn't for family and people like that it'd be hard to go off rodeoing. So I know there's somebody I forgot, but it's a great honor to be here. I want to thank the board for inducting me, and if I forgot you, I'm sorry, but it's the greatest day of my life. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, oath bearing. Our next inductee in the stock category, we present Miss Klamath. Mel Lambert, Hall of Fame announcer, will make the introduction. Mel?
Nice to be here. No fair laughing. You know, I'm honored to present to you one of the great stars of rodeo, the famous bucking horse, Miss Klamath. And I'm also happy, proud to see so many of my good old friends. The only thing that I'm disappointed about is most of them got so doggone old they didn't remember who I was. But it's good to see all those old timers. They've told me to cut this short. I'm like Clem McSpadden. How do you tell in 5 minutes about one of the greatest bucking horses of all time that joins the ranks here today of some of the great rodeo stock, not only saddle horses, but bucking horses as well? 5 minutes to midnight. 5 minutes to midnight. Great bucking horse. Couldn't hold a candle to Miss Klamath, I don't think. Cowboys that tried Miss Klamath have told me that was the toughest old mare that they ever got a straddle of. Said she was tough, hard to ride. Only a few cowboys ever qualified. Boy, I had a sack full of notes here. What the heck did I do with it? Got an airline ticket to home. I'll get them out of here in a minute. Miss Klamath. She was a beautiful mare. She was a thoroughbred. Some of you might not say thoroughbred what? Well, she was a thoroughbred, which means English racehorse. She had a beautiful conformation, fine head, not as light-boned as most racehorses, but a mare that weighed about 1,250 pounds at a great conformation. She was beautiful. I always liked to watch her buck. I guess I got to watch as much as anyone as announcer for Christensen Brothers Rodeos out of Eugene, Oregon for some 40 years. So I got to see old Miss Klamath, and had we realized what we had at that time, we would have kept a better record of her buck-offs and her guys that thought they rode her, and maybe did. But we didn't. You got to stop and think that was 50-some years ago, over 50 years ago, this old mare. But I've called a few of my friends, and I've tried to call up some of the things in my own mind about this Miss Klamath. She was raised on the Klamath Indian Reservation where I was raised. I was raised there as a young half-breed on the Indian Reservation. My folks were poor. They couldn't afford to have me, so a bunch of Indians up the river had me. And that's how I got to know the Klamath country, growing up in it. They had an Indian there named Honorees Summers, who sold Christensen Brothers a lot of great bucking horses, such as Miss Klamath. Well, he had a part in it, but he didn't actually sell her. But War Paint was one of the great horses that Honorees Summers, this famous old Indian cowboy stockman, sold him, and among others, Miss Red Bluff, and so on. One of the guys to ride Miss Klamath, he qualified at Klamath Falls, was a great bronc riding champion, Bill Ward. He was one of the few guys that ever rode her to the whistle. Another one was Deb Copenhaver, world champion bronc rider, that rode Miss Klamath, got on her 3 times. One judge on his 3rd and final ride on the old mare judged him as qualified. The other one marked him goose egg. He thought he rode her. They claimed that he lost a stirrup. He said he didn't. But Deb Copenhaver was one of those that tried 3 times and couldn't ride her. Other guys that tried to ride her was Casey Tibbs, our great champion behind me, Buster Ivory. Tell me that a guy named Billy Lawrence rode her, qualified, one of the few cowboys to ever qualified. I talked to an old Indian the other day of the Klamath Indian Reservation. I said, "Do you remember Miss Klamath?" He said, "Oh, yeah, I remember her well. She was a great bucking horse." I said, "Do you remember anybody that got bucked off of her?" He said, "Hell, everybody that got on her got bucked off." He said, "Would be easier to remember the guys what rode her than those who bucked off." Well, she bucked them all off. Her last ride, her last time out of the chutes, was at Ogden, Utah. The guy that drew her to ride in the competition backed off. He said, "I don't want any part of that old mare. I can't ride her." So Hank put up $100 to anybody that would mount this old mare. Now, Hank Christensen of the Christensen Brothers paid out $100 a lot of times for to ride this old mare when cowboys refused to try her. So she cost him a lot of money down through the years. Now, back in the 50s, $100 was like $1,000 now. So Hank paid out a lot of money. Now to say just a little bit about the people who owned Miss Klamath. Christensen Brothers, truly the top rodeo producers of the western United States, made their home on a ranch at Eugene, Oregon. I don't know how many acres they had, but I used to tell people it was 60,000. It was close to that. They had 2 other ranches near Roseburg, Oregon, one known as the Coalhagen 55. That had 5,500 acres of beautiful Willamette Valley and timber. The Umpqua River running right through it, lots of good fishing, beautiful scenery. They also had the Happy Valley Ranch at Roseburg, farther down the river on the Umpqua River. When I watched these Christensen brothers and their family grow up, I worked with them. And I want you to know that they were the hardest working rodeo producers in the country. I was going to introduce the whole darn family here today, but I'm just going to have to introduce them as a group because the lady told me to knock it off in 5 minutes. Anybody here who grew up on that famous Christensen Brothers Ranch, will you stand up at this time and take a little round of howdy. Will you stand up, all the members of the Christensen brother family? Right over here. There's 3 Bobby Christensens there. Bobby Sr., Bobby Jr., and Bobby the Third. The ranch was managed by truly one of the great pioneer ladies I have ever known, Molly Christensen. She raised all those grandkids, cooked for them, and it was always a pleasure to go there deer hunting. Their 60,000 acres is covered with deer, predatory animals such as bear, cougar, bobcats, coyotes. Bobby Christensen, the last remaining Christensen brother, became one of the nation's top trappers, U.S. government trappers. Whenever anybody said an old cougar killed some of my calves up in the hills, he was the first guy on the scene by the government. And he and his little old dog, about that big, could get those old cougars, and Bobby would shoot them, and he kept the country clean of predators. Bobby was also known not as a great rodeo producer, but one of the greatest pickup men that ever lived. An all-around cowboy ranch raised. I am so proud to represent them here today. Thank you. Bobby, I don't know where our partner went here. Come on up here, Bobby Christensen Sr. Get on up here. Here's a guy, Bobby Christensen, ladies and gentlemen. He walks better than I do, even though he's 6 or 7 years older. Hello, Bobby. Here you go.
While Bob gets organized, let me mention to you what's written on the plaque, Miss Klamath stock. Remembered as an undisputed queen of saddle broncs in the early 1950s. She went through a couple of owners before she found her way to the Christensen Brothers string. An unknown when she first started bucking, she soon developed a reputation for unseating all riders. Bronc riders of the era wondered if anyone would ever make a qualified ride on her. Rodeo legend Casey Tibbs was quoted in the Rodeo Sports News, quote, "I've ridden a lot of bucking horses and been bucked off a lot of them, but Miss Klamath was the only horse I ever thought I couldn't ride." Miss Klamath's consistent, unique style of kicking perpendicular and higher with each jump was ultimately responsible for a freak accident resulting in the end of her career in 1954 at the age of 14. The Board of Directors of the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame is proud to present Miss Klamath. Bob? Thank you, Bob.
Well, I think Mel here told you about everything there is to say. I'm sure honored, and I tell you, for being here, and everybody's friendly. I'm all my old friends, and that's about all what can I say?
All right. Thank you, Bob. It's great to have you here.
Thank you, Bobby. I might tell you, and I think I forgot to tell you, that the last ride that Miss Klamath made was at Ogden, Utah in 1953 or 4. We can't exactly remember. But aboard Miss Klamath at that time was the famous old bronc rider and steer wrestler Manuel Enos. And Manuel rode her for the last time when she bucked and kicked so high that she tipped over, had her nose stuck in the ground, her hind legs high in the air, and she broke both hind legs. Manuel Enos, a great cowboy, was the last one to ride.
Don't worry, I'm not going to spend more time up here than Mel. I have 2 legal pads on Sonny Linger and 2 illegal pads. Now, Sonny, if you read the program, it'll tell you all the details about Sonny, born, I think, April 9th, 1958. Looks like he was born in 1958, acts like he was born in 1978. Sonny Linger, in my opinion, is one of the greatest stockmen, still is, in the rodeo business. In fact, I feel that he sort of taught me how to nod my head, and I'd already been rodeoing for, I don't know how many years, quite a few years when I met Sonny. You know, you go to some of these rodeos and people will start screaming at you if you're taking a little too much time. I mean, when you're getting ready not behind the mic, but I mean in the chute. And Sonny had a real cool way of telling you to get out of there. You know, he'd smile and say, you know, Grandma was slow, but she was old. So he just didn't give you a lot of slack. And another thing I felt about old Sonny, I mean, he and still does, has the ability to go inside and figure out how these animals click, how they think, how they work. He knows all of their little ins and outs, their idiosyncrasies. In fact, I learned early in the game when I was rodeoing around Butler Brothers and Sonny that if a horse is upside down, first of all, you're in the saddle. He flips upside down, you're underneath him in the chute, and Sonny says that's about as good as he's going to get. You might as well nod your head because that's as good as he's going to get. I mean, he knew these animals inside and out like you couldn't believe. Now, they talk about all-around cowboys. Well, I don't want to get into that because I start talking about myself for a couple of days. But I think in Sonny Linger, and I'd say in my humble opinion, but I'm very opinionated, and it's not a humble opinion. It's, in my opinion, it's the truth. Sonny knew the stock. He knew the rodeos. In fact, he's the man that I would say is probably the best all-around cowboy and unsung hero that the rodeo business has ever had, because he could do it all. He could build the arena. He could not only start one of those big trucks, but he knew how to drive it. Well, he did have a wreck one time when he was hauling some stock to Reno, Nevada. Descent was on that, well, it was in the wreck, and I asked Sonny what happened. He said, Descent was driving. I just hadn't taught him how to get that next gear yet, and we lost it. But Sonny, I feel, has done more for the rodeo business. The National Finals Rodeo, of course, it has all that information in the program there, and he is still the superintendent at the National Finals. And he gave, I think, every animal and every cowboy the same shot, the best shot that was absolutely possible for them both to get out there and do what they could do so well. His life was rodeo. It still is rodeo. His lovely wife, Bess, she hung in there as long as she could. Till what, should we get into this personal stuff? Y'all got divorced in 1965. They got a divorce, and then she realized that Sonny couldn't live without her and be happy, so she takes him back. And during that 5 years, he was married 8 times. So he was a little confused. But anyway, they live up there in Montana now. Sonny's 70 years old, looks like he's probably 40 years old, still rides outside horses. Told me the other day that he had a colt up there that somebody sent over to him that kept running off and throwing fellas off. And I said, well, what kind of a colt was he? He said, well, he was about 7 years old and weighed 1,300 pounds. So I'm not saying he is the smartest sucker in the world. But this man, I think, has done more for the rodeo business and the National Finals Rodeo than anybody that I could put my finger on. Now I'm going to get to my notes here. But I was thinking about of course, my passion is now horses. I mean, I'm totally hooked on them. You think about Sonny Linger and how many horses that either from natural instincts or human-made habits that made them totally unacceptable in the normal horse world had a chance to go out there and do what they did so well, and that was buck. And Sonny always knew how to get the most out of them and get the most, well, out of the cowboy. And it was really an honor to rodeo during those years. And I think everybody else that rodeoed during that time around Sonny Linger that competed in the 3 intelligent events, bulls and broncs and all that stuff, well, I'd have to agree that Sonny Linger has contributed as much to rodeo as anybody that's ever been in the rodeo business, and I'm just proud to call him my friend, and I know that a lot of you can, and I'm not going to take any more. Well, let me get to the second and third page here, Sonny. But they're family. There's Larry, and there's Pat and Amber. Larry went to the national finals in the bareback riding, I think 3 times. Bess always wanted him to make it in the barrel racing, but he said Oates already won the barrel racing buckle. Anyway, here's a great family. great family man and probably the best all-around cowboy that can do it all, and I mean do every inch of the rodeo business, Sonny Linger. Proud to be here. And when they called up and said that he was going to be in the hall, he said, "Why?"
Thank you, Larry. Sonny, if we could ask you to come up. Ladies and gentlemen, Sonny Linger.
Thank you, Steve. It's really special. Thank you.
This is what's inscribed on Sonny's plaque. Sonny Linger is in his 5th decade of rodeo. Started his career in the late 40s as a contestant. However, his great ability with animals will be his legacy. His peers credit him with knowing and handling rough stock better and easier than anyone in rodeo. From 1949 to 1966, Linger served as chute boss and arena director for Butler Brothers Rodeo and was first to realize the potential of the great Butler Brothers bronc descent, keeping meticulous records on the horse for years. Linger was chosen as chute boss for the first NFR in 1959, a position he held until 1968, following the finals from Dallas to Los Angeles and finally Oklahoma City. In 1971, Linger began his own stock contracting company, producing rodeos in Montana, Wyoming, North Dakota, as well as providing stock for the National Western, Pendleton, and Houston. In 1985, he was selected as livestock superintendent for the NFR in Las Vegas, a position he continues to fill. Sonny Linger would describe himself as just a cowboy. Rodeo will remember him for his great ability with the four-legged contestants who count for 50% of the score. The Board of Directors of the ProRodeo Hall of Fame is proud to honor Sonny Linger, the very first recipient of the Lifetime Achievement Award. Sonny, congratulations. Sonny, congratulations.
Boy, that's something, isn't it? Quite a few years ago, Freckles Brown and I was visiting Oklahoma City one night. Well, this right after Freckles was put into the ProRodeo Hall of Fame. I was congratulating him, telling him how proud I was that he was in the hall, how he deserved it. I said, you know, we visited a little longer, and he said, you know, someday they're going to give you a real big plaque for what you've done for the rodeo business. I kind of giggled and said, yeah, and they're going to have 2 Christmases this year, too. My gosh, old Brownie knew what he's talking about. That's something, isn't it? I had a lot of good teachers on the way. Lynn Butler taught me about the rodeo business and a lot of things about life. Slim Whaley, I think he's the best pure D cowboy I've ever seen in my life. Handle any kind of livestock, bad, wild, medium, middle of the road, whatever. Always had a plan. I learned a lot from him. I still use a lot of things that I learned from Slim. Other good teachers, Ed Curtis, Vic Schwartz, Shirley Hussey. Sometimes even the greenest bevel jangler going down the pike might do something. You better put it in your file. You might need it later on. Nobody accomplishes anything without a good family. Oldest son, Larry, put himself through TCU on a football scholarship and right into the management division, feed for livestock, chickens, whatever. He's climbed and climbed and climbed. Wonderful family, his wife Ann, 3 sons. They're all individuals. Great family. My son Pat, my partner, right hand for a long time. Then that far 3 times in the bareback riding while he's busy helping me. You know, I think that's a pretty good accomplishment right there. He and his wife Lori have put together a good little cow outfit. Gave us a granddaughter. She knows something about rodeo. If you don't think so, just take her with you if you're going to do something. Son Ty, good fisherman, whale of a trophy hunter, probably going to have the best hunting outfit in the United States or anywhere else. Pretty good wrestler and a 4-point grade average. They ain't gonna beat that. Daughter Amber, probably the prettiest girl that ever carried the American flag in the ring. Very talented, sew, paint, whatever. Married Tom Wild Horse Hope. When I say wild horse, believe me. When you go to hills to gather something, you better be going full bore. Because I'll guarantee you he thinks the whole world's level. Daughter Sonny Beth, University of Wyoming, anthropology. Their son Jake, JT, we call him Jake. I got him fooled, he thinks I'm all right. Going to be a pretty good bronco rider. He's a good hand outside, good with horses, good with livestock, or anything else. You can't hook him up wrong. This next one, I think she could fit in a lot of songs. Marty Robbins had one, My Woman, My Woman, My Wife. I gotta have a minute. I really think she helped old Waylon write that song, Good Hearted Woman. You come in late at night, maybe you got a sack of beans or old scrawny antelope or a can of Spam. I'll guarantee you wouldn't be very long, you got a good meal. Raised 3 children, some of it in the back of a homemade camper on the back of a little old half-ton pickup. Lived in little old travel trailers for years. I think she is a good-hearted woman. And a lady. Thanks, babe. For being a whither thou goest, I will follow. Also, you know, there's a story, an old saying that says a man's entitled to 1 good horse, 1 good dog, and 1 good woman in his lifetime. Well, I've had 3 or 4 really good horses, 3 good working dogs, and a whole pile of good friend dogs. 1 good woman. I'm very fortunate now that I spend a lot of time on horseback. I get to do some thinking. I think about guys that probably ought to be in this ProRodeo Hall of Fame, Museum of American Cowboy. Cowboy, that's a hell of a word, isn't it? Probably the best in the whole dictionary. These guys are very vital and hard to find anymore. They're vital to the rodeo business. Pickup men, shoot bosses, good uns. Guys that load the calves and steers, the broncs, the bulls, all that kind of stuff. It's a little tough to find them. A lot of them won't ever even get a smell of this place. But you know, in the old days they had roundups, all these cow outfits would send a representative there to look over and collect their brands and whatnot. Well, those people I was just talking about, I can name a lot of them, but I'm not going to. Might miss somebody. I'm here as their representative, I figure. They got a rep in this hall. When I received the call from Colorado Springs here that I was to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, my first feelings were kind of skepticism and wonderment. You know, I thought, well, old Randy Majors finally figured out a way to get back at me for what I pulled out. That's a long story. And then I got the letter from Commissioner Cryer. I knew it was for sure, because even Randy Majors couldn't pull a deal like that. After I got that letter, my feelings turned to pride, self-satisfaction, feeling that I had done things right. A couple of weeks ago, another one started creeping in, another feeling. It really hit me last night and again today. Well, that's a humble feeling. To know that I'm going into a Hall of Fame with a whole bunch of friends and a lot of heroes. I'd like to thank everybody for coming today. It's a day I'll never forget. Thank you. I was there that day he rode the necktie too.
Ladies and gentlemen, the first recipient of the Rodeo Lifetime Achievement Award, Sonny Linger. Thank you, Sonny. Our next inductee, newest contract personnel, Andy Womack. And to introduce him, Mr. Troy Neighbors. Troy, please come up.
Hello, very
Nice to see you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Boy, what an honor to be here. This is my first time here, and I look out through here, and it's just... I'm from Scottsdale, Arizona, where it's 118 degrees today. I'm here to talk about a guy that I've known for many, many years, Mr. Andrew J. Womack, better known as Andy Womack, to millions and millions of his friends and fans, as the little rodeo clown and bull and barrel man from Phoenix, Arizona. So the people who didn't get a chance to meet Andy Womack, I was trying to think of how I could describe him. He was a man of many hats. He wore a cowboy hat, he wore a clown hat, he wore a construction hard hat, and he wore a businessman's hat. And I'm here to tell you that he wore them all very well. Andy was in the construction business, building Womack homes in the 1930s, when he got involved with the Phoenix JCs, and they were putting on rodeos. He got in there and he went to helping them put on rodeos. In 1940, they elected him as general chairman of the Phoenix JC Rodeo. He served 3 years, 1940, 1943, and 1944. That's the only man that ever held 3 of those. Everyone else has only got 1 year at it. When Andy went in 1940, he made some changes in the rodeo, way it was run and the way it was put on. Up until then, all the livestock had been supplied by just ranches in and around Phoenix, Arizona. Andy hired a stock contractor, Mr. Gene Autry, World Championship Rodeos. Andy's theory was, you hire a top stock contractor, you'll attract top cowboys attract all more spectators. And that holds true today. He also hired 2 more guys, Jazz Bull Ferguson and George Mills, 2 of the best rodeo clowns, bullfighters, and barrel men in the 1930s and 40s. At the time he hired them, he didn't know his life was going to change quite a bit. Andy, being a natural-born clown, he joined those guys, and I'll guarantee you, for Andy to join Jazz Bull and George was like taking 3 monkeys and putting them in a barrel and throwing an orange in there. They were fantastic. Their chemistry was just right in clowning. They'd work all year. Andy would work all year to have some act worked up so he could work with them the next year. They just had all kinds of fun. Each year he looked forward to working with them, and they were fantastic. About 3 or 4 years went by and tragedy happened. Jasbo was killed in a traffic accident with a truck rolled over on his way home from a rodeo. And his life changed. He was having some difficulties in his life right at the time. So he decided that he would just close up his construction business and become a rodeo clown. He didn't just become a rodeo clown, he did it first class, just like he did when he built houses. He was the first man to ever use a chimpanzee in his act, old cousin Hugo. He also had a faithful little old mule. He had 3 of them, but he had one that he loved the most. A little mule he called Dynamite. He had a custom-made trailer for that little mule, and he painted it just as bright pink as he could get it. Not only was the pink trailer going down the road, but he had a sign on the back of it that says, "Caution, hauling dynamite." People would pull up behind it, honk their horn, wave at him, and that was just what he wanted. He liked that. Andy went on to work some of the top major rodeos throughout the United States. He worked Madison Square Garden in New York many times, and that was when the garden run 28 days. All the way across back to the West Coast, he worked the Cow Palace in San Francisco many times, and a whole bunch of them in between. In the 1950s, a lot of different things happened. Andy took some time to work in a couple of movies. He worked one with Elvis Presley, and he worked one with Marilyn Monroe in a movie called Bus Stop. He also, another member of the rodeo family, joined the rodeo. His daughter Karen was the queen of the Phoenix Rodeo. She also went on to become the Miss Rodeo Arizona. Several years later, she also became the wife of Harry Vole. That, in my opinion, the husband and wife team of the stock contractors is the best ones we've ever had. That's my opinion. That was icing on the cake for Andy because he was already retired and he could go to every rodeo there was. He'd go out there. He'd go to, if you went to a coffee shop that we had hung out down there in Phoenix, if you wanted to talk about rodeo, I mean, he was there to talk about it. If you didn't want to talk about rodeo, you better move over to the next booth because he'd tell you where to go to. If you wanted to go to a rodeo in Arizona, go to Prescott. If you wanted to go to one in Wyoming, go to Cheyenne. If you wanted to come up here to Colorado Springs, come up here to Pikes Peak Rodeo. He had a little card that he passed around, and he'd tell you where they was all going to be at. He loved it. He'd travel all over the country and see it. He'd meet new friends, see old friends, and he loved that kind of stuff. He promoted rodeo everywhere he went. He wanted everybody to promote rodeo. So in 1970, he would always try to get some of the JCs, get them all to get more involved in rodeo down there. So he decided, well, if you're going to get them involved and help them get around like that, you're going to have to do something and give them something. So by golly, he started an Andy Womack Award. He gave away a custom, beautiful, handmade saddle to the person that can advertise and do the very most in advertising the Phoenix JC Rodeo. The first one was given away on The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson. Ed McMahon gave it away, and it was sponsored by Anheuser-Busch. And the first one was won by Monty Hawkeye Henson. And I'd seen that the rest of them was given away each March during the Phoenix Rodeo. And I'd seen a lot of people walk out there and receive that award. A lot of cowboys went out there and got that, and it was a great award to win. Several years after that, I had the pleasure of walking out there and receiving that award. And I treasure it very, very much. In the 1980s, we always have the livestock show in Phoenix in January. Well, in 1982, they started the Old Timers Rodeo. And boy, let me tell you, I don't have to tell you, you can guess who was the first guy there. He took all the cobwebs out of his old clown pants and dusted them all off, got his makeup on, his wig. Here he had a broom up there in the first performance. He had that broom combing everybody's hair, had a little shoe shine rag shining every bald-headed guy that was there and kissing all the wives. He was in his glory back up there. He was out there in the arena jumping around, falling around, working with the clowns and everything. And I'm telling you, he wasn't a spraying chicken. He was out there running around, and he'd make us all look bad. I'll tell you, he was great. He did this all the way through the 80s, right on into the 90s. In 1991, Andy worked his last rodeo at the age of 84 years old. Sadly, 1 year from then, in January of 1992, Andy passed away. The little rodeo clown and barrel man from Phoenix, Arizona, that wore many hats, was a promoter, he was a participant, and a very important part of rodeo and pro rodeo for over 50 years. He earned it, and he deserved it. And I'm very grateful for the Hall to induct my friend Andy Womack into the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame. And I'm going to tell you, it wasn't hard for me to come up here and make this speech. I'm very happy to get to come up here and make this speech, but I'll tell you what, it wasn't near as hard as next week Clinton has got to make a speech about a friend that they're supposed to know. So, thank you. Andy, God bless you. We love you. And I know you're watching today. We love you very, very much. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Troy.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Troy. If we could ask Karen Womack-Vold to come up and accept on the awards for Andy Womack Contract Personnel. Karen?
Nice to see you. Thank you. Very nice to meet you.
This is what's inscribed on Andy's plaque. Andy Womack was a successful Phoenix building contractor who developed and constructed the largest single housing project ever constructed in Arizona using assembly line construction. His stint as three-time chairman of the J.C.'s Rodeo of Rodeos in Phoenix sparked his interest in rodeo, where close friendships with clowns Jasbo Fulkerson and George Mills developed. In 1939, Womack traded his construction company career for a rodeo clown costume, patterning his face makeup and costume after Fulkerson following that clown's death. Womack was the first clown to introduce a chimpanzee, Cousin Hugo, to his act. Hugo did trick riding exhibitions with Dynamite the Mule, rode bucking horses, and worked the bull riding from atop a hanging dummy. Womack and his animal partners worked Madison Square Garden, the Cow Palace, and numerous other rodeos, as well as appearing in the movies Bus Stop with Marilyn Monroe and This Way Joe with Elvis Presley. In 1949, Womack returned to Phoenix in the construction business, keeping his rodeo clown act as a hobby for 40 more years. When others would have contemplated retirement, Womack put on the makeup and costume, once again, on the old-timers rodeo circuit. His rodeo career spanned more than 50 years, working with all the greats of the clown world, George Mills, Leon Coffey, Slim Pickens, Wilbur Plower, and others. The Board of Directors of the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame is proud to induct Andy Womack. Karen?
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Troy. I feel like everything that they've said is kind of what I have on my notes, so maybe you're going to hear some repetition here. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it is very difficult to receive an honor of this nature for someone posthumously. Many of you gathered here this morning did not have the pleasure of knowing Andy Womack. Some of you may not have even heard of him. I'm hoping to give you a synopsis of Andy Womack's life from a daughter's viewpoint. When I finish, I hope you will feel like you knew him. I wrote these words from my heart, but I don't want to say them without reading them, because I don't want to leave anything out and I don't want to do him an injustice. My father lived a very full and busy life. He was a man born with a desire to be more than average, even though he did not have much formal education. He always claimed that he graduated from the School of Hard Knocks, as many men of his era did. His involvement with rodeo started somewhere around 1937 or 8, when he became one of the founding members of the Junior Chamber of Commerce of Phoenix, Arizona. As Troy said, to keep the rodeo going during the war years, He served 3 years as chairman of the Phoenix JC Rodeo, the only man ever to do so. When Jazzle was killed in a truck accident about the time that my mom and Dad's marriage began to fall apart, Dad gave up a successful building construction business. He teamed up with George Mills, and he took up professional rodeo clowning career as the barrel man. He had admired his friend Jazzle so much that he patterned his makeup after him. As Troy mentioned, he was the first one to introduce a chimpanzee to the rodeo business, Cousin Hugo. They were partners in the bull riding, in many different clown acts, and in all parades. That's why you see so many pictures with the two of them together. In fact, a very popular picture of them together in the barrel is engraved on his tombstone in Fowler, Colorado. While he was working at Madison Square Garden in New York, he picked up a copy of an Arizona paper from a newsstand. He got homesick for Arizona and building, so he went back to Arizona and he started his construction building business again. And although it was highly successful, he couldn't get over his love of clowning, so he continued it part-time as a hobby for another 40 years. His last rodeo performance was at the age of 84, as Troy mentioned. Dad loved to make people laugh. It came natural for him. He would go to any expense with his time or money to carry out a joke or a trick, or to complete the props for a clown act, if it would bring a smile to someone's face. He loved kids, and all kids loved him, whether they were 5 or 95. I cherish many childhood memories spent with him. He was generous to a fault, and you couldn't outgive him. He liked to do special things for people unexpectedly. His motto was, "You always leave them laughing and begging you to stay, whether you're in the arena or at a relative's house." Believe me, he lived that motto to the nth degree. His visits usually lasted 24 to 48 hours max, and no amount of coaxing him to stay could change his mind. One of his favorite things to do was to drive up unexpectedly and surprise you, whether you were at home or at a rodeo. I think he just liked to see the shock on your face. Pete Logan, renowned rodeo announcer and also an inductee in this ProRodeo Hall of Fame, once described the Monkey Man in his newspaper column, The World of Rodeo. I quote, "The man who never tried to pull an off-color joke or do anything to offend the paying customer or their families. He was always funny, always moving, and always remembered when the show was over. A most uncommon man," unquote. I always thought that was a special and most deserving compliment. Before Dad died in 1992, I had never been to a funeral where the people that gathered to pay tribute to the deceased laughed heartily out loud as his friends eulogized him. Later on, I thought how appropriate. He left us all laughing and begging him to stay, the way he wanted it. Today, I know that he is peeking over a cloud in heaven with a grin on his face from ear to ear, watching this monumental moment take place. With all of his many accomplishments in life, I know that being inducted into the ProRodeo Hall of Fame would be the most dear to his heart. So on behalf of his children and other family members, I want to thank everyone responsible for this greatest of honors to him. I'd like to close this oldest daughter's viewpoint by saying there are 4 words engraved on Dad's tombstone that described him best: father, friend, entertainer, example. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Karen. Ladies and gentlemen, Karen Womack Vold. Thank you, Karen.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you, Karen. Well, you all are doing great, and we've just got a couple left, and you've been a wonderful audience. Our next inductee, bareback rider, 4-time world champion, Marvin Garrett. Kenny Day, Marvin's uncle, will make the introduction. Kenny?
Well, I'm Kenny Day, and Marvin called me about a month ago and asked me if I'd do this for him, and I didn't know there was going to be so many rodeo announcers here today, or I'd have sure hired one of them, because I ain't much good at this. And but Marvin, when he was growing up, he was a pretty quiet boy. He never did say much, and but he was always listening, I think. And everybody sort of liked Marvin. And I had a place out there south of Faith, and I'd get him to come out there and on the ranch. And might surprise you to know that he was a good cowboy too. You know, I mean, a ranch cowboy, good on horses, cattle. But when he graduated out of high school, I noticed him coming up in high school. He was getting to be a pretty fair bareback rider, and I noticed him, and I'd been around enough rodeos to know that he had the potential of being a champion. I figured if something didn't go wrong. So he said he was going to take off rodeo, and I believe it was in '84. Takes a lot of money to start out and get anywhere. You gotta, I tell you, it's pretty tough these days. You all know that. And so we went to the bank, and the banker, Marvin said he wanted $5,000, and the banker said, "What are you gonna do with it?" "I'm on rodeo." That old banker never quit shaking his head for half an hour. And I finally said, "Well, if you ain't going to give it," I said, "You don't know the boy." I said, "You just give it to me, yeah, I'll give it to you." So I got $5,000 to give it to Marvin, and I guess he went right away and got married. and then he headed south. But he got him a good wife. Real good family, I'll tell you what. We're real proud of them. And he went on south and got down there to Hugo, Oklahoma, and broke his leg, and a horse slapped into the chute gate. I believe that was in '85. And so he come home, pretty bad break, and he laid up the rest of the year, and he felt pretty down, but I said, heck, he'll up good, and we'll do it again next year. So we went next year and made the finals in '86. Come home, and I was real tickled to go into that same bank and give that banker that check Marvin gave me, paying me back. I says, I sure rubbed it in to him, and I was glad to do that. But anyway, they said take 5 minutes, and I believe I'm going to listen to them. You all know quite a bit about Marvin, and he's done pretty good down the road to Rodeo, and he bought him a place and got him some cows and some bucking horses. He's got several bucking horses, and he puts on them rodeo schools. I took my boy to that rodeo school once, and I watched how they worked, and him and Mark, and I believe they spent the first day fixing gloves and riggings for them kids so that they'd have a good start, a good chance to learn something. And I believe it's a real good rodeo school. He really works with them kids, and they all look up to him, to Marvin. I mean, they told me that. And he started, there'd been several guys like Montague, you know, and you'll see them at the finals, I'm sure, someday. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to say I'm proud to be introducing Marvin into the Hall of Fame. He's a good boy. They don't come any better. And I was sure happy to listen to the rest of these folks that spoke here today. I know some of these people. I knew them in the 50s. When I was starting out riding, I knew Jim Shoulders and Harry Tompkins and some of them boys that come to Deadwood and up in there at that time, and Rapid City. I got to know them pretty good. I don't think they knew me worth a damn because but they could ride. Well, that's about all I got, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to let Marvin talk if he wants to, and I hope I said enough. That's about all I got.
Thanks, Kenny. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Nice. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Marvin Garrett, could we have you come on up, please? Ladies and gentlemen, Marvin Garrett. Congratulations.
Thank you. Nice to meet you, Steve.
Good to meet you. It's on there.
Okay.
Here's what's on Marvin's plaque. Marvin Garrett told his fourth grade teacher he wanted to be a cowboy when he grew up. To prove it, he began riding steers when he was 12. However, his mother altered the course of history when she said he couldn't be a bull rider at age 15 until he could sign his own association permit, but he could ride bareback. Quote, "The first one I got on, I knew I was going to do that, and I forgot all about bull riding." End of quote. Rodeo could have lost this champion completely to wrestling. Garrett was All-State and All-American in 1982 and received offers of wrestling scholarships from Iowa and North Dakota. North Dakota and Wyoming also offered rodeo scholarships. Garrett was named the Rookie of the Year in 1984, his first year as a professional. In 1988, NFR appearance earned him the nickname of Marvelous Marvin. 4 times he has been the association regular season money leader in his event. This $1 Million Cowboy has won championships at Houston, San Antonio, the Cow Palace, Pendleton, and most everywhere in between. Quote, "When I'm done, I want to be able to look back and say I've done it all I could do to make the sport better. I hope I can do that." End of quote. The Board of Directors of the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame is proud to induct Marvin Garrett. Marvin?
Thanks, Steve. Well, it's definitely a time to stop and do some looking back on the past. That's pretty tough to do. I got a lot of people to thank, and I ain't gonna thank them by name. They all know who they are. I remember the times when we was back at the ranch in Aladdin, Wyoming, and me and my brothers riding that bucking barrel down there, you know. I didn't know there was anything good to ride till I got on the real thing. It's pretty hard to get on that barrel, you know, when the brothers are your competition. Their bucking are pretty good. It gets pretty western. But we had some good times, you know, all through the years. My brothers and sisters and uncles that rodeoed that sparked the light in my eye. To the fellers here in this hall, I look in there and it's pretty neat to see yourself between Jack Bushbump and Joe Alexander. Those guys I need to thank for everything they've done. For the grit that they had to achieve the things they did. To make a young cowboy sit up and take notice of what could be done. I'd like to thank all my friends and family from back home being here. truly surrounded by special people. And I think that's all I'm going to say. God bless everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, Marvin Garrett. Thank you, Marvin. Well, you've been terrific, and we've saved a gentleman to the end that you would find special as well. The notable category is reserved for those people who have made outstanding achievements or contributions to rodeo, and not necessarily as contestants. Jim Shoulders, 16-time world champion, will make the introduction of just such a very special person, Mr. John Justin. Jim?
I want to start off by saying that Sonny Linger is a hell of a stock man. I saw him walking a poodle dog last night. He did a good job, son. Yeah, I really think the dog was leading Sonny, but he was trying to make a hand. I will say that. So if it's everybody a stock man, he was one, man. Yeah. You know, when they called and asked me to talk for John Justin, I said, you know, anybody that's been around rodeo in 40 years knows that what John Justin and the Justin Boot Company's done for rodeo speaks for itself. And I'm not going to talk for him, I'm going to talk about it. He did make me promise not to tell everything that I know. John, I'm not going to tell the time that we got in a wild turkey and a horse bucked me off and tore my ear off and kind of about half broke my neck. Buster took me home to the Justin house, and Jane wanted John to take me to a hospital room, the emergency room, and he said, oh hell, he'd be all right till morning, and wrapped a towel around my head and made me go to bed. I'm not going to tell about the times that he got up at 3 o'clock in the morning and went and got a couple of inductees that's inducted in this Hall of Fame out of jail either. Neither one of them's here, and I won't even tell how many times he's kept a lot of the rest of us this year from going to jail. But, you know, John started out in the rodeo business as an usher in the old Coliseum or in the north side there at Fort Worth. I'm not sure, it must have been in the 1800s because it was before my time too. John promoted his way on up to the wild horse race there at Fort Worth, there in the Will Rogers Coliseum, with a couple of other inductees in this great hall, Reg Kessler and Jack Roddy. I said, who entered them? And they couldn't figure it out, and I said, I did. It was Jack Daniels, because it was after one of those famous Justin parties that many people out here have been to eat Jane's cooking and enjoy their hospitality. But, you know, having been a good friend of John Justin for over 50 years, I could tell a lot of stories, but he hired a hitman, and he won't tell me who he is. He said if I tell everything, I'm shot right here. And so I'm not going to do that. He, you know, most anybody knows what John's done for rodeo, and from way back in the old days when, before some of you kids didn't know what rodeoing was, like having to have your entry fees in or get there before 6 o'clock instead of calling Procom and all that. A lot of us used to have to call John and tell him to go down and pay our entry fees before the deadline at Fort Worth. And if you couldn't get through on the line or something, well, he'd go and enter us, and he paid, I don't know how many guys entry fees over the years. And some of them even paid him back, I think. He claims they all did, but I'm sure they didn't. And he got on up to after the placing in that wild horse race that time, they put him on the board there at the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo. And in a little while, he was up to chairman of the board. And anybody that's been to Fort Worth in the last 2 or 3 years knows what a great improvement it has been, and a number of the Fort Worth Stock Show people are here. But John primarily, and all these friends, and most of them are here, a lot of them are here, was responsible for raising almost $8 million for improvements to the rodeo grounds and the stock show deal there at Fort Worth. And it's probably the best facility in the United States today on that account. And he probably did more for it than anybody else. And you know, what can you say about the Justin Healer program? Them guys go to I call it the sissy room now, and get taped up and all the treatment from these guys. And it's a little better deal than the way we used to go to Andy Womack's trailer and drink a little bit of pain medicine, or George Mills or Schumacher and them guys. Hell, I think if I'd had Don Andrews and J. Pat Evans and them guys when I was going, I'd still be a rodeo. It might have been that much different. But that was just one of the many things that Justin has done for rodeo, and John and the Justin Boot Company has always been right there, one of the longest and the strongest sponsors in the rodeo business that I know of. And I've been going to these rodeos for 50-some years. And it's a real pleasure for me to get to be here and say a few things, not many of the things that the Justin and the Justin Boot Company has done for rodeo. And, you know, it's probably the greatest thing that's happened to rodeo contestants has been the Justin Crisis Fund. And it all started back there when Frank Scavetti, who was a vice president of Justin, called me one time and wanted to have dinner and talk some rodeo. He said he had been to a rodeo the week before and somebody got really bad crippled, and they had told him how little our insurance paid. And he said, "Could we start a fund or something to help the guys that get crippled?" And I said, you know, we've had all these years had trouble keeping insurance of any kind because there's so many injuries. Wouldn't be no way we could do that. I said, why don't you try to raise enough money to help the career-ending injury guys first and see if you could do that. And we'd be lucky if we could come up with enough money to help them, the guys that get have career-ending injuries, and help their families of the ones that don't make it. And Frank said, well, we'll try it. He took it to John, and John didn't say try it, he said go do it. And you know what happened from there. It's been the greatest thing and a great fundraiser for the rodeo, and probably the best thing that's happened to a lot of people. You know, John threatened to shoot me if I stole very many things, and I've got quite a few things here that he's marked off, so I can't tell all those. But I do want to tell you one thing. I've went down this list of all the guys that have been inducted in this great hall, and I got to rodeo, or know personally, all but 8 of them. And there is nobody that deserves to be in here any more than my friend, John Justin.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. John Justin, and if I could just take a moment to read what's on his plaque. John Justin, notable. The Justin name has been synonymous with the cowboy boot for over a century. John Justin began his career in the family business at age 6, putting laces in 16-inch lace-up boots for no pay. In the early 50s, his lifelong dream of running the family boot business became a reality. John Justin has been associated with the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo since 1959, serving as chairman in 1982. His civic involvement includes time spent on the Fort Worth City Council and as mayor in spearheading a development program for the Will Rogers Equestrian Center. As much as for his boots, John Justin will long be remembered by the rodeo community for his concern and care for the cowboy. Almost 20 years ago, the commitment was made by the Justin Boot Company to a mobile sports medicine program for professional rodeo. From the start, the company has provided the sponsorship necessary for the program, which assists everyone from the rookies to the world champions. In 1991, the association, the WPRA, and the Justin Boot Company worked to found the Justin Cowboy Crisis Fund to assist professional rodeo participants and their families in the time of financial need. John Justin and the Justin Boot Company have provided boots for the feet and help and hope for the heart and the life of the rodeo cowboy. The Board of Directors of the ProRodeo Hall of Fame is very proud to induct Mr. John Justin.
Thank you very much, Steve. Thank you very much, Jim. I take back all those threats I made to you, because if you had told everything you knew, they probably would have been ridden out of town by now. I've always loved rodeo and rodeo people. I started when I was in high school in Fort Worth, and the ROTC got to usher at the old Northside Arena. I volunteered 1 year for every performance. It was the coldest year Fort Worth has ever had. Lake Worth froze over, and it was cold. And I got pneumonia, but I served every one of my deals of doing it. When Jane and I got married in 1953, I explained it to her that I loved rodeo, but I'd like to get more involved with rodeo people. So I said, I want to go to Cheyenne. She said, let's go. So we went to Cheyenne, Wyoming. I bought a Western suit and a nice hat and thought I was kind of a dude out and all that. And got up there and we got a room in a little adobe motel. And I asked the guy at the desk, I said, where do the cowboys go at night? I want to take Jane out to dinner. He said, well, I think most of them go out to the 120 Club. I said, where is it? And he told me. So we went out there, and I went in, I checked this nice hat I had, and the girl said, you want to take a chance on the punch board? She said, how much is it? I said, 50 cents. And I wasn't too flush with money, but I dug down, got 50 cents, gave her 50 cents. My first punch, I won $100 in chips. I had to spend it there. But we went in, got a little table for two, and then you could buy a beer for a dime and a mixed drink for 35 cents, and you could get a steak for $1.35, $1.50. And so we started, and sitting at the next table to us was Tater and Joe Decker, and we got to talking to them and invited them over, and I told them I had all this $100 to spend. And I spent all that $100, not all of it, but I spent all I could afford to spend, and my body began to rebel. And I thought, well, we better go to that old adobe motel and go to bed. So I went back out and I tipped the girl $1, and she said, I had another $50 left. She says, you want another punch on the board? I said, yeah, give me another punch. And I punched another $100 on that punch board. Just as I did that, Casey Tibbs walked in the door. I didn't know him well, but I knew who he was. And I said, what are you going to do, Casey? He said, I'm going to come in here and have a lot of fun. I said, well, have it on me. And I gave him that $100 worth of chips, and I imagine he did have a lot of fun. But I've always loved rodeo people. Jane is very gregarious and loves to cook and is an excellent cook. And she invited all these people around Cheyenne that we saw that night, said, when you're in Fort Worth, come out the house for dinner. Well, they all did. And it started to kind of a go-round of parties that we've had many years. Many of you have been there. But I've always loved rodeo people. All my association with rodeo has been good, and I appreciate this honor. Is one of the things that is beyond my belief that I would be inducted into this Hall of Fame.
Thank you very much, Steve. Thank you very much. This way we go. The way we came. We want to ask all of you and thank all of you for your participation today, because you're the champions that make this work, and we appreciate that. We ask all of the inductees to come behind the podium for group photos, and over in the garden, compliments of our good friends at Original Coors. We have lunch, and so please join us. Again, thank you so much for being here today.